Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Johnny from Worship Sound Guy here. I am so glad that you joined me today for this live stream where we're doing some mixing, learning some techniques. I think it's going to be just really, really fun, really educational for you guys. And I'm excited to get to hang out for a little bit. I'll probably stream for about an hour or so. I think that's going to be a good time. Not let things go too long. All right, so let me get ready over here, getting everything together, guys. I'm not gonna lie, I was making a coffee and I was almost late to the stream because I was making this coffee. So let me pause over here. Okay, there we go. So okay, yeah, you guys, it's a lot. You guys got to tell me if you have like a milk mustache situation going on at any point. We're cool, right? We're all friends, so you can tell me. I feel like that's one of those things my wife and I were just talking about, like where you got something like stuck in your teeth or something, and nobody tells you. It's like, come on, like where are the real friends at who are gonna like man up and say something? All right, so today we're talking about drum mixing. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and apparently it's one of your favorite things to learn about. We sent out an email to like our whole email list a couple days ago asking sort of like what this stream should be about, and overwhelmingly the answer was drum mixing. Drums and vocals were like kind of neck and neck. So super excited to talk about that. I think it's gonna be really useful, especially kind of going into the Christmas season. And you know, you want your drums to sound great for your Christmas Eve services. So hopefully we're gonna talk about some techniques that are gonna really help out with that. So we're gonna go through a drum mix. I'm gonna talk about how I approach all the different inputs on a drum kit. And yeah, we're gonna go from there, see where it takes us, see what we get to in our allotted time. And yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun. Also, just to mention, kind of before we kick things off here, so I want to do something special for people watching the stream, and so we offer a lot of like console presets, online courses, all that kind of stuff, like templates for digital consoles, all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, you know what? All these people who are on here are wanting to get better at sound, wanting to improve what they're doing. They might be into that. So if you enjoy this kind of thing and you like how I teach, you like some of my methodology, maybe you want to check that stuff out, we've got a discount code for you, which is Sound Better, all like one word, SOUNDBETTER, that you can use over at worshipsoundguy.com to get courses, presets, whatever, just for people watching the stream. So don't share it. But yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun, and I'm excited to do a little training with you guys. Okay, so let's quickly pop over here. So let me show you kind of what we've got going on. Now, you may notice that I'm over here. I'm in a DAW digital audio workstation called Pro Tools right now. That's just the easiest way to stream. I've got it set up just like a console though, so don't worry. Like it looks a little different obviously than mixing on like a full-size mixing console. That's going to be okay. There's nothing that we're going to do here that you can't do on a console. Nothing crazy. We will use probably a few Waves plugins here and there. But these are all techniques that are going to apply pretty much exactly no matter what you're mixing on. So don't worry if it looks maybe a little bit unfamiliar to you. It's going to be okay, and all these techniques are really going to translate. So let's talk about what we have. So I've got, this is kind of cool to share with you guys. So a buddy of mine who mixes over at a really big church that I cannot name sent me these drum tracks. So these are recorded live on a Sunday, and this is a church that like I guarantee you are familiar with. You have listened to their stream, you've maybe attended in person, and you've gone, wow, their drums sound incredible. Like what's going on there? What kind of special stuff are they doing? And so I'm excited to get to work with these drum tracks because while they are like really solid, the playing's really solid, you're gonna see like there's nothing super crazy about the sound like coming out of the like just off the kit. Like there's nothing like super crazy. It's not like you just pull up the faders like, wow, it's mixed already. Like no, it's gonna take some work, and that's really the trick. Is like all good drum sounds do take some work. No matter how good your starting tones are, it's always gonna take some work to get it there, and this is no exception. So let's go ahead and listen a little bit. Also, let me know in the chat over here. Gosh, oh, we have so many people watching. This is super cool. People from Myrtle Beach to Nigeria to UK, LA. Man, so fun. That's awesome. So yeah, guys, thank you all for jumping on for this. It's gonna be really fun. Okay, let's take a listen really quick to what we've got. And also make sure you tell me in the comments, in the chat, if anything's too loud, too soft, if you're not, able to hear something, let me know. I can obviously control that. So if you're having trouble hearing anything, just let me know. I'll play us a little bit of it here. We'll kind of go through the individual sources and kind of listen to what we've got. Maybe like address some issues here. And yeah, let's go ahead and just take a listen to what we have. Okay, so yeah, it sounds good. It's not insane though. It's not like it already sounds so great that we don't need to do anything. So we've got some work to do on it to make it sound really good. But we're at a good starting point, and I would encourage you with drums, especially like the starting tones that you're working with are one of the most important factors in getting things sounding good. Just double checking your mic placement, your drum tuning, even what drum heads you have on there. Everything kind of supports the sound that you're going for. That's going to really help make mixing a lot easier and a lot more fun too. So let's go kind of mic by mic and see what we've got here. You'll notice there are some plugins on these tracks. So I've got an EQ and a gate set up on all of these, but they're currently not doing anything. You'll see the gate, the threshold is all the way down. So as soon as it starts playing, it'll open up. So it's not actually doing anything. The only processing you're hearing right now, let me jump over to the mixer. You're hearing a little bit of my kind of master, like typical chain that I use in Waves for just like mastering. This is what I've run like maybe on a live stream, honestly, even on like the console in the room, just on the PA in the room. I've got Waves Vitamin, I've got trusty old SSL compressor, and I've got the Puig Tech EQ. We'll go through this a little bit. There's nothing there that's like really affecting the sound a ton. It's just kind of what I usually mix into, so I wanted to include it in this. All right, let's go jump back over, listen through these, and kind of get a vibe of what we're working with. So here's our kick in. Turn that up a little bit for you. Yeah, nothing crazy, but it sounds good. That was a Beta 91 in there. Let's go to kick out. Very solid. That's the DPA kick mic. Okay, over here we've got snare top, and you'll hear something interesting here. Yeah, so they were hitting that preamp really hard on snare top. They're kind of driving that a little bit. Maybe not the vibe that I would typically go for, but I think it sounds good. Like I think it fits. We're gonna make it sound really good. But you'll hear there's a lot of like noise and stuff in there that we're gonna have to work with. Kind of a lot of like extra stuff going on that we'll need to address. But that's okay. We can make it work. Let's hear snare bottom. This is just 57. Typical snare bottom. Listen to the toms together, so 2 toms on this kit. Okay, one thing I'm gonna do really quick, I want to address this. I think this first tom was coming in a little bit low on gain. I'm gonna use my little clip gain feature to gain it up just so the 2 toms are of a similar input gain. That way we can kind of make sure everything's like sort of hitting compression and stuff at the same amount. That's one thing I'll say really, really, really important on drums. Make sure you set your gain right. You want to get, right up into like kind of the yellow area of your input meter on your console. That's where your console likes to live. We've got a really good video on gain structure. If you search Worship Sound Guide gain structure, that teaches a lot more about that. But yeah, so for just this purposes, I want to show you that I'm kind of adding a little bit of gain to tom 1 to get it evened out. Okay, next up we have a hi-hat mic. Let's get to where he's playing it. Yeah, that's a hi-hat. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't always use hi-hat mics. I guess I like them for in-ears, maybe, like if the drummer really wants to hear it. But as far as actually being usable in the mix, I'm like, man, there's so much of that in the overheads. I just don't need it. Speaking of, let's listen to overheads. These were, I believe, C414s. Yeah, those sound really, really nice. I love those. Okay, cool. So let's start by addressing kind of some individual elements of the kit here, and then we're gonna kind of like bring it together, make it gel, make it sound really awesome. But let's go in and we're gonna do some kind of correction first. So if you're just starting to mix drums, this is kind of where you want to start, kind of with these corrective moves. I like using subtractive EQ for this. So what that means is we're reducing some area of the frequency spectrum rather than adding. So the reason I like to do that is because I have found that by taking away the bad stuff in the sound, you usually kind of uncover what's good. And when I do that, when I approach it that way first of like doing it subtractively, I tend to not have to make as many like big adjustments or like, especially big boosts, because I'll just be able to kind of get where I need to be by subtracting. So like instead of, for example, like, oh, this kick needs to be, you know, snappier, it's kind of dull. I wouldn't go for like a big boost. I would first try to cut some of the mud, which is coincidentally exactly what we're gonna do first. Okay, let's try something new here. Let's go full screen. All right, yes, that's cool. Okay, sweet. Let's go ahead. Oh, you know what? Hang on, let's get to a good part of the song where he's playing here. Okay, so we're gonna listen to our kick in mic first. There we go. Okay, so the reason, really quick, this is FabFilter Pro Q3. I really like this guy. I know Pro Q4 just came out. I'm super excited to try that as well. But Pro Q, it's awesome, mostly because it goes full screen. It's got a really nice analyzer on it, like you can see. And it's just very user-friendly, but trust me when I say it's nothing different from like the digital EQ that's on your console. There's nothing like special or magical about this that makes it sound any better or different from what you have on your console. It's just a really nice way to demonstrate. So let's kind of dig into this kick. Let's kind of hear, the first thing I was already noticing is there's just some kind of like honky muddiness down here in this like 200 to 300 hertz area. So I'm going to start right there. Let's listen to that and kind of see what happens when we pull it out. Yeah, check that on its own. It's kind of that weird like knocky frequency almost, but it's just something we don't need in there. And then I kind of tightened up the Q a little bit just to kind of make it a little bit more surgical, even though it's still pretty broad, like it's like a Q of like 1.38. Then I'm going to come in. I want to add a little bit of low end, a little bit of weight to that. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, that feels good. So you can kind of see on the analyzer where like the fundamental of this kick drum is, and that's right where I want to boost. Now, usually that is kind of like, it's almost cliche to say, but like 60 hertz is just kind of the point where that happens. And so, yep, there it is. That's where I'm going to boost. I'm not going to be shy with this. We may go up a little bit more. We'll see what we need kind of once we get both kick mics working together. I think right now that is fine. Now, I'm hearing a little something up here, kind of in this like 600 hertz range. Let's listen to what that might be. You hear that's like, it's almost like a clacky kind of sound, right? Let's pull some of that out. Yeah, that's feeling really good. Okay, check this out. I'm going to disable this EQ. I'm going to highlight all the bands, and we're going to turn them all off at once real quick. So check out what this has already done. So it's off and on. Hear like how much more defined that is, and like we didn't even add any top end or anything, but just by taking away those couple areas that sounded sort of nasty, we really have been able to like kind of clarify that drum, which I really like. Now, here's like the quick little shortcut. I'm just gonna copy that EQ to my kick out. Let's see what happens. So let's listen to that. I'm gonna open that up, listen in the same spot. Let me turn these all off to start with. Yeah, okay. Okay, I like what that's doing. Now, this is something that I've talked about before, but I tend to like to EQ a lot of my like microphones that are on the same source. Like, you know, I've got like two microphones, both on the kick drum, or like snare drum might be another example. But I like to do it where I'll actually use like the same EQ on both of them, at least for the most part. I may add like one band in here, we'll see. But the reason for that is to maintain phase coherency. EQ works by kind of manipulating the phase of the signal. And if you do like wildly different EQ on two microphones that are on the same instrument, they'll end up just sounding kind of phasey and weird in a way that generally doesn't sound good. So I like to at least start with kind of the same EQ, and then like, so what I'm hearing right here, I'll show you in just a second. There's a kind of clunky thing going on down here. And I want to address that, I think, but I'll start with these same EQ bands because I feel like they're really getting the job done. I'm just going to add one down here. So check this out. See this? Like you can literally almost see this other little bump up here. It's like a harmonic of the fundamental tone of the drum. So check out what that sounds like. Kind of that whoop 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 sort of sound. If you're listening on a phone, you're probably not going to hear that, but maybe, you know, go back and listen on headphones later. So I might sweep in and just take some of that out. Let's listen to what that does to our low end now. Maybe even a little higher. Yeah, that sounded a lot better. Okay. You guys able to hear that okay? I can definitely make it louder if we need to. Let me know in the chat. Let me turn this EQ off real quick. Okay, so there's where we started. And here's where we've gotten to. That's feeling really, really good. Okay, now here's the challenge is let's get these kick mics to work together. Obviously, right now we're only dealing with EQ. So we'll get to like gates and compression, all that kind of stuff here in a minute. Let's blend these together. I'm going to boost the volume a little bit. I think it's maybe a hair low just for you guys on the stream. Let's kind of listen to what these two drums sound like together. We'll go back to the mixer so you can sort of see the relationship between these two. So right now they're even. Let's listen to what that sounds like. Pretty good. Pretty good. Let's, I think the kick out is going to be kind of my main mic. Kick in is going to be there to sort of support it. So I'm going to lower this a little bit. Let's see where the blend like kind of feels good on that. Yeah, I'm liking that right about there. That's feeling pretty good. Okay, so now we talked about gating a little bit. I do like to gate the kick drum. This is another instance where I want to use the exact same settings on both of these kick mics so they open and close together. I think that is really going to help us out, and it's going to make it where, you know, we don't get like the sound of one lingering longer than the other or something like that. Let's go in. We'll open up Pro G right here. This is another, this is a gate. It is just like the one on your console. Nothing crazy going on, I promise. I'm going to go with the fastest attack, and then we'll just release to taste. One other thing that I think, gosh, everybody messes up on with gating drums is the range. You don't necessarily want to like mute the drums in between hits. That's like not really our goal. I want to reduce it a little bit. I want to reduce some of that bleed. I don't need to like have it be like a hard cut in between hits. So let's go ahead and we'll dial in our gate and then we'll adjust the range. So I'm going to sort of raise up my threshold here as we play it. Okay, so you hear like how cut off that sounds, right? Like that's not what we want. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna increase the release time. See how much more natural that feels? Like if you get it too quick on the release, it just sounds really unnatural and kind of just chopped off. So I'm going for release like almost a half second, right at like 400 milliseconds. And then I'm gonna drop my range. There we go. Maybe like 30 dB instead of completely muting between hits. I think that's sounding really, really good. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that over to our kick out mic, and we're gonna make sure it works. Might have to adjust the threshold just a little bit. And honestly, maybe even a slightly longer release on that. Kick out is gonna have a little more resonance to it. So this is kind of where, like, if I'm going to adjust something like that, I might adjust on the kick out. Like just, I mean, we're talking, 100 milliseconds more on the kick out. And now we have something that sounds really, really nice together. Cool, that's awesome. Okay, now, before we get into compression stuff, I wanna go through and just get like basic EQ going on all these inputs. Then we'll kind of come back, we'll do like a round of EQ and like a round of compression. And we're gonna move a little quicker here as we kind of get into the rest of these. So let's just kind of hear what's going on in the snare top. And we talked about this, it is, it's pretty hot coming to this preamp. You can kind of hear it. Yeah, so that's all coming from the snare top mic. So that's a little bit aggressive for my taste. I would probably not have gained that quite as high, but that's fine. We're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it sound awesome. So let's go ahead. The first thing I notice is there's a good amount of like kick kind of bleeding into this. I want to clean up those low frequencies a little bit. So I'm going to add a low cut filter down here. Let's play it. I'm gonna sweep it up, get it just below. You'll see kind of this little like bump in the low end. That's gonna be like the fundamental like impact of the snare drum. I want to get it like just below that so we don't take it away. We just kind of clean up everything below that point. Yeah, so you can see like the snare like kind of bumping like right around here. So I'm kind of cleaning up everything below that to sort of keep it all just nice and tight down there in the low end. Okay, so the first thing that I'm hearing, we need to clean this up. Before we do anything else, we need to clean stuff up. And the first spot I'm noticing is kind of this like honky. It's not even a ring, it's like more of a honk. I don't always mind like a ringy snare. I do kind of mind a honky snare. And that's kind of what we have now. So we're gonna address that first. Let's check this out. Okay, so you can even see it on the analyzer. I'm gonna play it one more time. Look kind of like right around this area and check out what's happening. It's kind of that bump, 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 like that sort of tone. So I want to go in, take a narrow Q, so it's like pretty precise, and we're just gonna zip that right out. Let's hear what that does. Yeah. Let's turn that off. And on. Okay, so just that cleaned it up a ton, right? Okay. That's pretty cool. So I'm gonna add a little bit of low end down here. I'm pulling my my low cut filter down a little bit, and then I'm gonna boost sort of the fundamental of that drum. Let's see kind of where that's at. Okay, it's starting to sound like a snare. We got a little more work to do to get it there. This is a good example of one where you really have to like do some digging to get it to sound the way you want it to. I think sometimes people get a little bit nervous about like maybe using a lot of EQ on a snare or anything really. And I'm here to tell you, you got to do what you got to do to get it sounding right. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters what it sounds like. So I'm hearing just a lot of guess like, you know, it's like some of the rest of the drum kit, some of the harmonics of the snare, just because it's hitting that preamp really hard. So let's go ahead. We're gonna pull, I think it's somewhere around like 700 or 800. Let's listen to what that area sounds like. Yeah, kind of that knocking sound. Wow. I mean, like, what a difference, right? Let's turn that off for a sec. And back on. Like, just those two cuts. Like, that brought so much, like, definition, clarity to the snare. And, like, remember, we haven't touched anything up here on the high end. We have just done some cuts. We've used 3 bands and a filter so far. And we're already getting something that's just a lot more usable than what we started with. I would say if we want to get kind of that like deep, modern, like smacky snare drum, I might cut a little down here as well. We'll see what that sounds like. Let's try it out. Might work, it might not. Yeah, I think that sounds pretty good. I think it's a good starting point. Let's roll from there. And for the sake of time, I'm once again going to copy that over to snare bottom. So now we have snare top and snare bottom with the exact same EQ on it. So let's listen to what those sound like together. Yeah, I think that sounds fine. So now notice I'm not really getting the same like honkiness that I was getting on the top snare on the bottom. However, I am getting another resonant point right here. So I'm gonna dig out a little bit there. Cool, I think that's sounding really good. Let's blend them together. Yeah. This is like where I almost always end up with kind of my snare. Actually, you'll notice like a kind of a pattern here, right? So I've got like my main kick and snare mics right at the unity point. And then I've got like my secondary, like my kick in and my snare bottom, roughly like, you know, like 7 to 10 dB below that. That just kind of tends to be a good starting point. And that's, you'll see me kind of end up there a lot with kind of relationships between 2 microphones on the same source. Okay. Let's go ahead and gate that. Let's look at our snare top first. Fast attack. Okay. So this is a great example of why I don't like the range all the way up on a gate. Because like, especially snare gate, and especially if you're hitting the preamp hard like this, you are going to get it opening when you don't intend it to. Like it's not going to be perfect. And so when that happens, you want it to sound natural. You don't want to sound like all like herky jerky like that. You kind of heard like those toms opening up. Like check this out. So it's like the snare opening it's not bad, but we're gonna dial it in more. But when the other things open it that are maybe not quite as loud, it really, really chops them off. And that's not what we want. So again, we're going to pull this range down. Let's see. I've got like 20 dB, maybe even less. Let's see. Raise that threshold just a little bit. I'm going to adjust the release some too. so often I'll hear, especially in churches, I think because maybe you're dealing with kind of a loud stage, you want to like keep everything, as quiet on stage as possible. That's a whole other topic. But I'll hear like a really fast release like this. Like, sorry, that doesn't sound like a snare to me. You need to have the decay of the snare, or it just like doesn't sound natural. You can't like, a lot of people I think will like, they'll just keep a really short amount of snare and they'll put a bunch of reverb on it. And it's like reverb and snare decay are not the same thing. So I want to hear it more like this. Check out how much it cleaned up. So there it is bypassed. Here it is engaged. Yeah, that's way, way better. Okay, so let's copy that over to our bottom snare. Probably gonna have to adjust the threshold in this because that gain was so hot on the snare top. I feel like so much of the character of the snare comes from the bottom. I know a lot of people will like run that pretty low. I like to really hear it in there. I think especially when you start adding some reverb and stuff to it, it can make your snare drum sound really, really big and nice. So I don't want to lose out on that, right? Okay, I think that sounded really good. Let's listen to it together. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, now I know I'm still, there are some tom hits coming through. That's just gonna be how it is with this snare, the way it was recorded. So that's fine. I'm not concerned about it. Let's go ahead and move to toms. I'm gonna pan these a little bit just to make it a little more fun. Actually, well, while we EQ, let's keep it both the same. So let's listen to our tom 1. Okay. All right, so toms are gonna be another one where we do not need to be afraid of really digging into these. So once again, to kind of get a little bit of that kick out of there, I'm gonna pull this up. Let's see where we end up. Okay, and you can hear again, like there's that like snare area in there. I think we're gonna need to carve out a lot more than that, but I'm gonna start kind of in that area. I'm gonna make like a wide cue, maybe even back this down a little bit more. Let's hear what this does. I'm gonna boost that fundamental just a hair. Okay, it's already sounding more like a drum, right? We've gone from kind of this like washy, sort of incoherent mess that we started with to now something that's like, okay, that sounds like a tom. I can hear the fundamental note. Just by making this one big cut, like that's like a 9 dB cut. Like don't be scared. We're probably gonna do more. Let's hear what happens if we even cut out some more up here, probably around like 800 hertz. Make that a little louder for you guys. Yeah, and he's not hitting it crazy harder there. Let's see if he hits it like in this section more. Yeah, there we go. Now you'll notice he's not hitting it super hard. This is we'll probably address this a little more with compression, get a little more smack out of it. I would like to hear it a little bit more. It's like it's very gentle right now, and that's okay. We'll get there. Okay, so obviously we've done some work here. Let's go ahead, let's get our gate up and see where that takes us. Again, make that release longer. Fast attack. Let's make sure that's opening on these softer hits. Yeah, that'll do it. And once again, we're going to turn down the range. Yeah, that feels good. That's only about 19 dB. Let's go ahead, just for time's sake, I'm gonna copy over the same settings to our floor tom. We'll adjust them a little bit, but I think it's gonna be a decent starting place. So, okay, here's our floor tom now. Let's check out what that's sounding like. Okay, so you'll see him kind of just moving everything down a little bit, right? Because the drum is tuned lower. So it kind of makes sense. We're just taking basically the exact same kind of formula that we just applied here. We're cutting out a lot of mid-range, boosting our fundamental a little bit, and we're just shifting it down to match up with like where the drum is tuned. So if you had more toms, like you've got a higher tom, lower tom, like whatever, kind of you can sort of use the same formula to line everything up as you progress through your set of toms. Check our gate. Yeah, that sounded really good. Okay, now, the other thing that's so important with gating is you need something to tie it all together, right? Like, if we just listen to these on their own, it's gonna sound okay. Let's hear it all together. Yeah, let's go ahead and pan these toms. Let's hear what this all sounds like. Little snare in there. Okay, so it doesn't sound bad per se, but it doesn't sound great either. It doesn't sound like a cohesive set of instruments, does it? It sounds like almost like individual drum samples kind of being played together or something like that. So we want to avoid that, and we want to do something to bring the kit together and make it feel like one instrument, like we're like there in the room with it. As opposed to just hearing these like individual, like, you know, kick, snare, toms, you know, all individually. And what that's going to be for us is the overheads. Let's listen to those on their own really quick and kind of take a look here in our EQ, see what we're dealing with. These sound really good right out of the box, to be honest. I think let's go over to like maybe a more energetic section, see if he kind of digs in a little more. Yeah, there we go. Get that ride going. Yeah, everybody hearing that okay? Please let me know if like anything's too loud, too quiet, whatever. Balance between like my voice and music, all easily change. So just let me know. Oh man, I've got coffee over here too. I keep forgetting. It's keeping me going. All right. So first things first, I approach the overheads a little bit differently from some people. Some people will put like a low cut filter in there and they'll just ramp it up to like, you know, like 400, 500 hertz. You'll get something that sounds like this. Right. And at that point, it's essentially like a cymbal mic. And you'll even see guys that kind of like, you know, they'll angle the mics in a certain way to kind of like pick up more cymbals and get less of the actual drum shells. That is the exact opposite approach that I take. I view the overheads as like a kit mic. I want to hear everything, the whole drum kit together through the overheads. I think that is, for me, a much more useful way to approach them. And it really helps, like we were just talking about, to bring the kit together. So let's go ahead. We're just going to set our level with this really quick. Let's go back over to our mixer before we get into any EQ or anything. So, okay, we're going to pull this in. I've got it all the way down right now. Let me disable it. Obviously, I'm not going to use a gate on the overheads. Don't need that. Take off hi-hat as well. Okay, turning down hats. We're going to blend in our overheads. Yeah. So hear how it suddenly sounds like, oh yeah, that's a drum kit all playing together. It's not just like the individual drums from a drum kit. It's the whole thing together. I think that's really the point of the overheads. Let's listen to these in solo so you can hear what we're going to do with EQ. Check this out. Okay. The first thing is snare. Snare gets really overlooked, I think, in overheads. Like there's good stuff in there. It sounds awesome, especially once we get a little bit of compression on there. It's really gonna sound cool. So I'm gonna boost the snare like 3 dB, like right around 180, where you can like see that little like bunk of the snare coming up. I think that's gonna sound really cool. Now, there is a place in the overheads of just like my nemesis, and it's like somewhere around like 700 to 800 hertz. You'll hear just this kind of like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh from the cymbals, and it just kind of always sounds nasty to me. Let's listen for it so you can hear how gross it is. Yeah, gross. Ew, hate it. Cool. Hear how much more you can hear the snare now that we just made that little bit of a cut. It's like a 3 dB cut right there at like 674. And just by doing that, it's made it so much easier to hear like the impact of the snare, the definition of the cymbals, kind of just everything comes together better just when you sort of clean out that mid-range just a hair. Now, on this, you'll notice there's a lot of content up here, especially as he hit like the crash ride over there a second ago. That kind of stuff, that's where you might want to ride the fader a hair. I'm not necessarily going to go in and like pull that down. This would also be a great spot for like a dynamic EQ. Let's actually try that. I can do this with ProQ. So like if your console has got dynamic EQ built in, that's awesome. I just because it's fun, let's go ahead. We're gonna put in Waves F6. Let's see, can I make this bigger? Oh, I can make it so big. Wow, look at that. Okay, that's amazing. All right, so we're gonna put a dynamic band where it kind of really is like smacking us with that cymbal. Let's hear that. It seems to be right up here. Maybe I'll use this band. Let's see. Yeah, it's that really kind of like abrasive, like 7 or 8K that just like really gets you. So I'm going to turn the range down on this. If you're not familiar with the dynamic EQ, it's like a compressor and an EQ had a baby together. It's where basically when the sound at that particular frequency gets loud enough, it will turn it down some. So I'm telling it, hey, get ready to turn it down by 5 dB when it reaches a certain threshold, which we're going to determine right now. Yeah, so here when you hit those crashes, it just comes down like just a little bit. I can speed up the attack a little bit on that, maybe speed the wrist, just so it kind of gets in and gets out really quickly as those crashes hit. I think that's going to do great. Okay, let's hear all this together. Yeah, that's feeling really good. Okay. So now the thing that I like to do after this, so it's kind of like, this would be sort of like my baseline level of processing on drums. This is a great starting point. If you had this drum mix, I'm like, yeah, that sounds fine. That sounds really good. Not going to be mad about that at all. But there are a few more things we can do with it to make it sound really cool. First thing is we need some reverb. We need to give this thing some space, some depth. And we want it to sound cool and vibey and fun. So let's do this. I've got 2 reverb sends set up, and I'm going to use this Valhalla reverb for both of them. I'm going to use the plate on one of them and vintage verb on the other. Get to those in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead. So this first one's going to be our snare verb. Let's see. Oh, I called it Snare verb. That's funny. Okay. That's okay. Can't spell it right. We're going to send to that. So basically all I'm doing here, I'm just sending from our snare channel to our reverb. That's all that's going on. Nothing crazy. And let's go ahead and hear. There it is. Okay. So I'm gonna look here. Let's see. Maybe short brassy snare. That sounds kind of cool. I will almost always, or dark steel. Let's try that. Okay. See what that does. Yeah, okay, this is like right about where I like it, about a 1 second reverb on snare. This is gonna be short, might be shorter than you would expect. Like a lot of times we associate kind of that big worship snare drum with this like, tremendous long reverb. And that's not usually all that is. Like we will have a long reverb, but it's not this one. This one is just there to kind of like make the snare, I would say bloom. It kind of like opens it up. And that generally doesn't take that long. So let's hear what that does. And I'm just gonna blend it in for us real quick here. Let's go ahead. We're gonna solo snare top and snare bottom. I'm gonna send a little less. Well, let's hear what it sounds like. Okay, here we go. Cool. Okay, that's going to give us the vibe that we're looking for. That's kind of what I want there. I may even like, I could add a little more high frequency to it. Yeah, let's actually try that. Want to kind of pop like a little explosion of like snare energy with that reverb. So that's all we want there. We're going to blend that to taste with the rest of the kit here in a minute. The other reverb, this is going to be our big one. So again, there's a million different ways to do this. Let's try maybe like a dirty plate. And so I'll say to you, like, obviously you may not have vintage verb in your setup. That is totally fine. I'll use a bunch of different reverbs, honestly. It doesn't really matter a ton to me. I'll just look for something that kind of fits the vibe that I'm looking for and kind of tweak it from there to get where I want to go. And this one happens to be fun. I just kind of like it. So one thing, I'm going to turn down this pre-delay. We don't need that much on there. Pre-delay is a really great thing. It basically kind of delays the start of the reverb, so it doesn't like smear with the initial like impact or transient of your drum. So it just gives like a couple milliseconds for like the initial like oomph of the drum to sneak by before then you hear the reverb. So let's go ahead. We're going to start adding this and see where I sent that. So that's just drum verb. If I could spell. There we go. Okay. So I am going to put a little bit of this on the snare, even though the snare has another verb on. These two verbs are serving very different functions. You'll see this one right now, I've got like a 4-second decay, which is about what I want on this. I'm just going to spread this kind of across all my close mics. I'll put some on here. Let's just kind of hear what this sounds like, and they'll determine like what needs it, what doesn't. So I'm going to pull this all the way down. Let's hear what we get. Cool. I think it's sounding good. I'm gonna make it a little shorter. That's a lot of that is like gonna be dependent on the song. If you've got like a big kind of like, I hesitate to say ballad, but like a slower song with like less drum hits going on, like less aggressive playing, you might want to make it a little bit longer. If you got something where there's like a lot of, especially like snare and toms being hit, you might want to make it a little bit shorter, and that'll just kind of help clean things up and keep it all sounding natural. All right, cool. So I think we're in a good spot, especially for not having added like any compression or anything, any cool little tricks yet. So this would be a really good kind of like starting point. Now, The next thing I want to look at is going to be some compression on here. Specifically, kick, snare, toms are going to get some of that. I'll probably put some on the overheads. You'll notice I have turned down this hat mic. I just, I don't think we need a hat on this. I think we're getting plenty in the overheads. So, okay, let's go in. Let's listen to our kick. I'm going to pull up, I'm going to go waves on this one. Let's do... So we're going to use the DBX 160. I think this sounds very cool on kick. So this compressor, kind of a legend on drums in general, really. Like it sounds great on snares, sounds great on kick. Very nice on toms too. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe we'll use this on everything. Let's just listen to it really quick, just on this kick in. We'll hear it really quick. I'm going to turn it up for you so we can get a good vibe. Turn down the threshold. Yeah, and just like that, it's just getting punchy and fatter. Let's turn it off really quick. Move our output gain up a little bit. It just kind of gives you that like oomph to it that you really want. I'm trying hard not to let the output fool us. Like sometimes compressors will they'll make stuff louder and our ear will hear that and go, oh, it's louder, it's better. And it doesn't actually sound better, it just sounds louder. So I'm gonna try to kind of gain match these as much as I can. Let's kind of see where we're at. That's pretty close. They're getting mostly just kind of that nice smack. So I'm going to copy that over. We're going to put that on our kick out as well. Let's hear that on its own. Just make sure it's not doing something totally weird. I'm going to do a little less compression on that. I don't want to like take away the natural dynamics from what he's doing. And sometimes if you compress it too hard, especially kind of as he lays in there, just kind of all the kick hits sound the same. And that's not really what we want. Let's see. Yeah, let's hear these together. Yeah, that's feeling really good. Like, I don't know if you can hear like just how much like stiff is kind of the word that comes to mind. Like, let me deactivate these really quick. Now active. Really just helps lock everything into place. I love that. Okay, let's move on to snare. Snare, there are so many good compressors for snare. Lately, I've actually been really liking the CLA 76. I know that's kind of like cliche, but it sounds good. I'll show you a couple different options here for snare. Let's listen to what that sounds like just on its own. It gives it like a nice little pop without going like too over the top with it. Let's compare it to something like the DBX 160 real quick. So I'm gonna bypass the 1176, the CLA 76. I'm gonna open up our DBX. Let's hear what this sounds like. Like, I don't hate it. I don't think it's as good though. So I'm gonna take that off. Put our 76 back on. It adds a nice like chop to it. I think that's kind of what I'm hearing there that I really enjoy. I'll show you another thing that I'll do if I just have like the console compressor. Let's open up just like a really basic, this is like a console style compressor, just, typical settings, nothing special. There's no like analog modeling here or anything like that. Let's make it full screen. That'll be fun. Okay. So here are my magic settings for snare. I'll go with about a 25 millisecond attack, a 120 millisecond release. I just type those in there. 4:1 ratio. Now let's adjust the threshold and see what we get. So you can see we're getting like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 6 to 9 dB of compression. Like that's honestly fine. I know it's like kind of a lot, you might think, but I think the 76 is getting more than that. Let's go ahead and let's A/B these really quick. Let's hear what each one of these sounds like and see which one wins. So okay, here it is. Just as a reminder, kind of the raw snare tone. Sounds really good. Here is the just basic console compressor. Sounds really good. And the CLA 76. I think for me, there's something about the CLA 76 that wins, but I could take either one of those, honestly. And in fact, I may use that same console compressor setting on our toms over here. Let's see what we might do with that. But first, let's look at snare bottom. This is one, I'll compress it a good amount. Let's do something fun here that I enjoy doing. Let's do... Oh, I've got too many plugins on here, guys. What am I looking for? The API 2500. There we go. Okay. All right. I'll sometimes just smack the snare bottom, and it sounds pretty cool. So I'll go fast attack, usually like a 4-to-1 ratio, although sometimes I might go higher. Let's start kind of bringing this in and see what it sounds like. Like speed up that release. Make it a little louder for you guys. So I don't really want to see any movement while like just the kick is hitting. I just want to see it on that snare. But like, again, 6 dB of compression, totally fine. Let's blend those two together and hear what it sounds like. Okay, I'm adjusting my gates a little bit. Just, man, with that with that snare top, it was getting a little wild. So I just want to make sure that we're not getting too much of that bleed in there. I think it's going to be fine in context, but I think we can just clean it up just here. All right, so let's see where we're at with our full drum mix. Here's kind of one of the louder sections. That's feeling good. Okay, I'm going to add some more like weight to that kick drum here in a minute, but let's deal with toms first. Like I said, I'm going to open up that exact same console compressor. I actually don't reach for anything super crazy on toms. Like just the built-in stuff is going to be totally fine. Let's go back to where he's playing that. Let's see, I think this will be a good section. Just adjusting that threshold on our tom compressor. Copy it over. And really quickly, let's hear what that's doing on that floor tom in particular. He's doing that kind of like just dun, 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 like just a real, kind of subtle, like almost like a roll with like one hand. And this is going to help kind of even that out. So basically what that compressor is doing is kind of making those loudest hits just a little bit softer. And so it's evening out. You can hear more like of the articulation as he's kind of like rolling on that floor tom. I think that sounds really cool. Okay, I think it's sounding good. Let's listen to all that together. Yeah. Yep, sounding awesome. Okay. Now, let's move into our bus compression. Okay, so I have got a couple things set up here on drums. So I've got like my basic channel going, right? So first, I've got a drum. Oh, let's see, floor tom is panned to the right. I wonder. Let's see. Oh yeah, you know what? It is panned to the right. I did this from drummer perspective. Yeah, if I was actually mixing this, it probably would be flip-flopped like that. Let's also, while we're at it, we're going to flip-flop our overheads. Those are also from drummer perspective. Good catch, Kevin. Also asking, why do we pan toms? Okay, so really this is for like kind of just your listening experience right now. And I'm not always an advocate for panning toms in the room. I will say that. It really depends on the PA coverage, like how much you can hear of the stereo image throughout the room. Because you definitely don't want to get in a situation where, like, you know, someone on, let's say, the right side of the room only hears the right tom. You know, like that's not what we want. We want people to be able to hear everything. But at the same time, I'm all about moving stuff out of the center of the mix to make room for the things that need to live there. And the things that need to live there are like vocals, kick and snare, bass. That's really about it. Those are like those important like center elements. And so that's what we want to live there. Great question. Okay, so let's open this up. So we've got two drum buses. I've got it's gonna be like a drum dry, which still gonna have some compression on it. And then also a drum comp. And let's see, I don't need gates on this. Just make it real simple. Okay, so I have got the API 2500 opened on both of these. So let's go ahead. This is kind of my starting point. Feel free to copy it. So I'll go slow attack, 4:1 ratio, fast release. And you'll notice down here on the tone, I've got knee set at soft. I don't want to hear it like get too like pumpy or aggressive. The detector is normal. And the type is set on old. I'll switch on that sometimes. But one incredibly important thing that I see so many people miss: unlink your channels. What I mean by this is, so in this link section, basically this is saying if something happens on one side of your stereo image, like say, like for example, if we have our toms panned and dude hits a floor tom super loud, should it just compress on one side or should it compress on both? If you have it at 100, that floor tom that's only on one side is going to compress on both sides of your compressor. Whereas if you have them set individually, it basically treats it like two independent sides and it'll only compress on the one side. And yeah, because like I don't want a tom on the right to affect the compression that's happening to my, snare that's coming through on both sides, like equally. So I want to kind of like isolate that. And that's the way to do that, is to keep those channels independent. So let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is on our drums dry channel. Gonna turn this threshold up. Let's see what we get. Let's get to a bigger part. I usually set drum compression during a big part of the song. There we go. So about 3 dB is kind of what I'm looking for on there. I don't want anything super crazy. I just wanted to just tame some peaks for me. Then the other side of things is going to be our drum crush. So this is where we're going to get a little wild with stuff. So again, API 2500, but a very different approach here. We're going to be going fast attack and a fast release. We're really going to be like just kind of smacking some stuff. Let me see. Let's see. Let's go ahead and let me turn stuff up to this. So what's going to this bus is not everything. It's going to be our kick, our snare, and our toms. I don't want overheads going to this. And the reason for that is because overheads in like a heavily compressed situation tend to sound really washy and weird. And that's not what we want. So what I'm gonna do, I'm turning up my sends to this. I wish you kind of see a little bit better, but I've got my kick set at around -5, my snare set right at 0, and then toms coming in. Actually, we'll probably have them closer to like -5 as well. So snare is going to be the thing that kind of hits this the hardest, and followed by kick and toms. And yes, Moses says, yep, parallel compression. Absolutely, yeah, this is what this is. So let's see what this sounds like. Okay, bring down threshold, fast attack. Okay, I'm noticing there is kind of a nasty amount of hi-hat coming in on that snare. Honestly, not much we can do about it, so we're just gonna roll with it. It's okay. All right, so yeah, so that's kind of what that is gonna sound like. And you'll notice on this one, I've got the knee set at hard. I want to hear the compressor like doing some work on this. Also I want to do a faster release as well. Let's check out what it sounds like. Maybe like 10-to-1 ratio. Okay, and just make sure to okay, here we go. Hear how just absolutely smacky that is? Like, that's the sound we're going for on this. It's not pretty, but it's gonna make stuff sound really, really cool. Okay, so let's blend these two together. So I'm gonna mute reverb for right now, and then we're gonna kind of rebalance this all a little bit in a second here, but here we go. So here's our drums dry. Yeah, hear how much more weight that has. I went ahead and I turned down the snare just a little bit. I think it was just kind of overwhelming the mix a little bit and not in a way that I liked. Now let's go ahead and mix these reverbs back in now that we kind of have all this processing going. Let's hear what they sound like. Yeah, that sounded very cool. That's got some vibe to it for sure. Okay, let's see. We are almost out of time here, so we're probably gonna leave off there. Let me show you just a couple more really quick things you can use to sort of tighten up things a little bit, especially like on that snare. So one thing that I might try, we'll see if this works, would be something like Smack Attack. So this is a transient shaper, and basically it uses wizardry to create more attack and be able to shape the sustain of the drum. So I'm gonna see what this sounds like just on the snare by itself. You can hear we can go crazy with this, like. Oh, also very important, set your kind of like detector like threshold here. So I just wanted to do snare hits, not everything. Okay, I like what that's doing. I want a lot less of it. Let's turn it off. Back on. It kind of focuses the snare. Lots of stuff has a transient shaper built into it. Like even like the X32 has a transient shaper built in. So don't worry if you don't have this one specifically. Oh, look at that. Waves is having a sale. I am so surprised. Should probably turn off my notifications, huh? focus mode here. There we go. Okay, cool. So I think we've gotten to a good spot with this. And I like where we've ended up. I think so. Just to let you guys know, tomorrow I am planning on filming a video about drum tuning and selecting drum heads. And I think you'll see I may do another stream with like fresh drum heads and obviously different drum kits, not my church or anything. But setting things up maybe a little more how I like. I think we can probably get an even cooler sound with this. But these will be really good like foundational techniques for you to work with. So here's any like questions here. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So Sharif was asking, does an unlinked compression mess with the stereo image? Yes, it actually does. So by unlinking the stereo image, or by unlinking the compressor channels on this 2500, yes, I have absolutely messed with my stereo image a little bit. And what I mean by that, and what Sharif is talking about with that, is like saying you've got something that's like right down the middle, like snare, and then you use a compressor that is unlinked, and so it compresses one side more than the other. You'll hear potentially the snare move a little bit to one side as the compression activates just on one side. And honestly, I don't care. That's my hot take. I really don't care that much. I would rather have a little bit of that than to have one, like rogue tom hit duck my entire drum mix. So yes, it's a trade-off for sure, but I think that's fine. It may sway it a little bit to one side, but it's really fine. So that's a great question. Thank you so much, Sharif. Lonnie was asking, is this the same process if you're using electronic drums or drum tracks? Let's see, I'll go full screen here. I would say roughly yes. This is going to be very similar. I think those ways of approaching drums are like if you're working with electronic drums or like tracks or whatever, you've got your own set of complexities that come with that, specifically trying to make it sound natural, I would say. But yes, the general approach is going to be the same. You'll probably have to do less work, especially on like, stuff like toms, where like I'm digging out, a ton of like low mids and stuff in there, to try to get that sounding good. You won't have to do that. Like that's going to sound fine, because it's probably already been processed on its own. So yeah, that's a great question. So you won't have to do as much work, but the overall process will be the same. Let's see. Matthew Taylor asking, is there an API 2500 equivalent for the SQ5? Not a direct equivalent, but honestly, I mean, like, I would say just copy these settings. Do a 30 millisecond release time, 4:1 ratio, 0.05 second release. And like you're gonna be in the ballpark. There's nothing I'm doing here, especially with like just a few dB of compression. Like there's nothing that's gonna like go super crazy with that. If you do have the expansion pack, the deep pack for Allen and Heath, they have kind of like an SSL style compressor that, if you want a little more vibe, that might get it for you. So yeah, like play around with that. But I would say overall, kind of these settings are more important than the particular model of the compressor. And I'd say that's a rule for all this kind of stuff. Just because it looks cool, looks analog, whatever, like usually it's not imparting that much of a sound to it, that it's going to be unrecognizable if you try it with a different compressor. Use whatever you have, do some similar settings. Like the important stuff here: slow attack, 4:1 ratio, fast release. Like just go with that, and like trust me, you will get in the ballpark to the point where most people are not going to be able to tell a difference there. So yeah, great question. I just realized I didn't have my screen up during all that. Oh well. Here, Matthew, I'll put this back up really quick so you can see the settings one more time. But yeah, so I think again, it's always about the ear. It's not about the gear. It never is, never will be. If you can hear what you're going after, if you have a sound in your mind, you'll be able to get it there. And yeah, don't worry so much about like, is there an exact equivalent to this thing, to XYZ piece of gear? That's not going to be like super crazy, like important on that. Moses is asking, with the X32, with one effect slot, which reverb you go with? What a good question. Um, X32 has some good emulations of the Lexicon reverbs. They're the ones that kind of have that like looks like old plastic. It's like kind of yellowy white plastic looking on the screen, like in the GUI. But I like the Hall and the Plate versions of that. So I'd probably check one of those out. Generally for drums, I'll do something like a Plate or a Hall, depending on the space that I'm in. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it there. This has been super fun. We're going to be doing a lot more streams like this going forward. I think we've got like a cool streaming setup down here. So this has been really fun. Thank you guys so much. I mean, gosh, there have been almost 400 of you guys who've watched over the course of the stream. So I hope you learned something. Again, if you like the way I teach, if you want to learn more of this kind of stuff, you want to see it in a little more like put together sort of environment, check out our courses. They're all over at worshipsoundguide.com. You can use the code SOUNDBETTER, all one word, SOUNDBETTER, just because you watched the stream, and you'll save 20% off of anything from there. So yeah, make sure you take advantage of that. We got some really, really cool stuff. We have actually a drums masterclass. If you go to drumsmasterclass.com, or you can get to it from the main site too. But it goes deeper into like tuning and processing. It's like 5 or 6 hours of content as opposed to, you know, like 1 hour that we did here. So just, yeah, going to go much deeper. Make sure you check that out if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Also Sound Guy Essentials for kind of just a good overview of what it takes to run sound in church. Got our X32 masterclass for all you X32 users out there. So go ahead and check all those out. But guys, this has been so fun. I have had a blast doing this, and I hope you all have too. And I will see you next week. Until then, happy mixing.